Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with more Third Reich events mod talk. I guess would be a reasonable title for what I'm doing here. This is not going to be a very long, as in very far into the game playthrough. Sorry if you are wanting a long campaign and we're getting, to conquer the Soviet Union, but we're just covering what we've done so far and improving okay, right now we are doing we're going to leave the industrial research, although we're doing some mechanical computing. So let's get Guderian out there and being a theorist. Again, the three events at once. I don't like that. Okay, because this is the first event here, and sometimes they don't make as much sense. Okay. This is actually a rework of a Black Ice version of this event. I learned more about it, and trust me, there's a lot for me to still learn about National Socialist Germany. A whole lot. Originally found this pictured and wondered if it was a doctored thing, but I know now it isn't. They didn't have Photoshop back then, but you did sort of have the ability of taking and I know of several, for sure, historical examples where they took photos and superimpose like one Zeppelin on another. But I'm pretty sure, I know this event happened that they were together, but it's sort of get them lined up it this way and take both. That's LZ 29, the Hindenburg there, and back in the background you can see that this is bigger around diameter compared to the length at least than the LZ 27, the Graf Zeppelin back here in the old one. And this event, you can read in more detail, was basically right after the remilitarization of the Rhineland. They looked for a version of that pin, because I think they probably made one, because I have other sort of events, but found this. They toured around Germany, basically very, very shortly after the Hindenburg was completed. This was its first real public, and what's his name was very, very displeased that it was rushed out there under Goebbels' orders, basically, and some of the weather conditions weren't very good for it as well, the first day or two or something. Basically, there's a propaganda campaign particularly over the Rhine, but I think they did eventually sail them back in company to Berlin. It was for a few days tour to promote up the remilitarization of the Rhine. And I just think, just looking up and seeing, even to this day, because there's nothing really that big up in the sky, those big huge things in the sky, to me, is impressive. They're just impressive. So, cost a little bit of political power, help national unity, improve fascist support. So I found out. So I've added a flyer from the time period and a medal commemorating the event from the time period of the two Zeppelins flying in tandem. That's a rather rare thing. Second, London Naval Treaty. Now, I have added, if you notice, we have some world tension here that happened when we remilitarized the Rhineland. If you've watched, I presume, the last episode, I had the very rare incidents where the France went to war, so I went back to the autosave and then got the normal historical response. I don't know whether it's like 4 or 5% or whatever, but that it has for overall world tension, but remilitarizing the Rhineland is an aggressive move that should increase world tension. So I did that, which bounces up on the scale. Now here, Germany was not invited to this conference because they were already limited in a much greater way by the Treaty of Versailles on what naval tonnage they could have. This is a medal commemorating Japan's leaving or not attending the conference. The Japanese actually struck this commemorative attached with a ribbon onto whatever you would wear, I guess, for that. But it reduces tension between the various powers, though not Japan. The U.S., Britain, France, and Italy. And what fools. And I think, what fools. I understand armaments races that can lead to war or theoretically lead to war. But it was artificial silliness. But that reduces your world tension down by 3%. And we get a diplomatic report from Czechoslovakia that the National Assembly has passed a law on national defense. George, 1941, who's a Czech educator, that was really helpful in developing all of these for TRE in the Black Ice version. And I don't know. I guess I'm still in disbelief, and I'm not saying they don't exist, but he did not have ready access to, and did web searching in Czech, and I did it in English and in whatever copy and paste Czech that I could find. I could not find a photograph of the Czech National Assembly in session, if you will, with people there. This is the picture inside the Czech National Assembly building at the time, not this specific day, but there are just no stock photos that I could find that of it in session, which sort of surprised me. And they passed this law on national defense, but in the U.S. when we do things like that, we call it the Homeland Defense Law or whatever. There's no sexy title to this law on national defense, or I would have included it. And because he gave it to me, and so I sort of, typing back and forth. Well, what was it called in Czech, in Czechoslovakia, Czech, or however you want to say it? And so he, gave it to me, and then I copied it, pasted it in Google Translate just to sort of see, just law on national defense of April 30th, 1936. I mean, it's just so boring. I'm sorry, people. It's just so boring to me. I wanted, like the Nuremberg laws or, a cool title. Couldn't come up with some of these things. But still the event here. That's why it's this diplomatic report. And though I do have the event sort of started in Germany because it's a German focus thing, it fires an event in Czechoslovakia, which, in my opinion, based on my knowledge of Czech armaments in production, it gives some bonuses to some, the research type bonuses, these types of things. Some fairly heavy one or two uses of it, and hopefully the AI will take it to improve artillery, improve small arms, some bonuses to whatever. And though because I don't know what the AI is going to pick of these four things, and I didn't want to pick the one that I thought was most appropriate, and then if the AI went down a different track, because I could specify to some degree, I just left it open so that the AI, because it's mostly, you can play this, this is obviously a sales pitch, if you will, for Third Reich events. You can have this going and play Czechoslovakia. It's perfectly feasible. It should work well. It should be just fine. And so you as the human will get the event firing and seeing that for Czechoslovakia. You do not have to play Germany. But I think ultimately it makes Germany more difficult to play. So maybe if you're playing as Czechoslovakia, you would have a better chance of surviving against the AI. But I sort of kind of worry a little bit that if you're playing something like the US or whatever, I don't know, if you're winning too easily, having Third Reich events on it might make it even easier to win. So it's not in any way, you shouldn't play, and I know if you in the old version people play other nations when you're playing Third Reich, you have Third Reich event mod installed. You can, it just might make Germany too easy to defeat. So this is a period piece of advertising for basically shortwave services as opposed to other types of stuff. And notice it says Germany calling. This is a German thing, so obviously it's not Deutschland. I don't know what. Sorry, I don't know German for calling. This was pre-war German foreign language broadcasts around the world. So 2% bonus, and you can see here. Let's find a. Let's look at Czechoslovakia. We're at -5. Germany thinks it's a -5 position. Thinks of Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia a -5 position on the Reich. I believe they're one of those nations there. Sometimes you have to get them back. That didn't. Oh, it did change here. Sorry, because it's still the general plus, but no, that's national unity. Sorry. Yeah. Is Czech not there? Go to the country list. Let's go to Poland. My example didn't seem to work out right, as I had hoped. Come on, Poland. Yes. Now you can see I get maybe Czechoslovakia skipped there because of the other things going on. I don't know. Because notice it's not even here. Germany is at thinks of Poland as a -10, but it's a -6. Poland's thought. So it helped out our relationship versus Poland and many other nations. Okay. Now we want to do dispersed factories. But just know that, especially right now, Third Reich events is still very much a work in progress. This is a sort of a progress report. Okay, so you notice here West Wall needs both of these two, and the line goes all the way across here, so we're going to start the West Wall. National focus. And Der March C. I think that a bunch of others up in this part of Germany, they basically taken this area, and I don't know if they drain it or after, but they create this huge, and here's a little bit after it, but these are the men working on it. Here, sort of a very large, sort of shallow lake, artificial lake, for boating and swimming and other sorts of things, but also to put people to work, in this case men, to work. Just one of many projects, so this is sort of a sample, because building one lake doesn't remove 1% of your construction capability overall. But notice it's for 40 days. So it just it's a representative thing of various public works projects. So it increases your fascist popularity by 2%. And no, I don't give you a chance not to decrease factory production speed, because this is what they were doing. Okay, and Seabad Pora, that would be Sea Spa Pora, which I think is up in this part of there, somewhere on the Baltic. The building still exists today. Not sure if how it's just sort of a shell remains, but they never did complete it. That's part of it. Notice the big. It was set up by the KDF, Kraft Deutsch Fraud. What is it? I forget. Somewhere around here, I'm sure I'm blanking on it at the moment. Translated in English, but that's part out of the DAF, the Deutsches Arbeiters Front, or German Workers Front, if you will, the sort of labor organization, set up to have a huge, massive seaside town, obviously just in season. So now this one I do give you a choice. For 60 days, you'll have roughly 4 or 5%, depending on which one I varied it, reduce in construction speed for 60 days, lose political power of 4, you get a popularity boost of 5% for fascism, or you can say it costs too much, but you'll take a national unity hit of 3% and a drop in popularity of 5%. Now this obviously was never completed. It was started at this time in roughly in 1936, and you have the choice, and it's again they when they were starting these projects, the reason you gained popularity because they were telling everybody about it. It was in newspapers, magazines, and presume on the radio and whatever, that they were going to be building this, and that puts a lot of people to work. So we're going to go with the historical and start production. Basically, it never wasn't completed because the war started, not any other reason. Okay, we have support weapons. But now we can come over here and start that. Okay, let's see, just one. So what I'm going to do here is increase convoys. Just pathetic few, but and we're still focusing all of our civilian factories on producing more civilian factories. So there is a natural downturn of world tension if nothing's happening. So we've gone up. Okay, this is basically the Naval Memorial at Le Beau. I think that's up in here. Sorry, Germans, if I don't know your geography very well. It was a monument to the dead of World War I. Later, the naval dead. Later, they added after World War II, they added the World War II dead. It started out, I think, to some degree, maybe before the Nazis came to power, but obviously they did sort of take over it. This is the dedication completion ceremony. A couple of photos from it. You can see the tower there. There's Hitler in his brown uniform with some admiral types. You can tell who they were on the bigger one. But basically, even though this is actually sort of completed, you are getting 10 days of 2 and 3% hits to various production. And just to sort of show that off here, I've used this staff symbol here. Actually, it's from one of their sort of cap badges here. Because everybody had a uniform in the Third Reich labor union. So you can see all these are all cumulative, currently on. So you're having negativity. This is why I was saying earlier that it is very much designed to have the AI be able to play it, but you're getting costs. In the standard game, you got the west wall. Notice we completed the west wall thing here. There isn't any west wall. So if you were planning on getting that west wall and then starting to behave like a bad boy and knowing that, oh, well, we can defend against the French attack, the west wall didn't happen that fast. Did not happen in 36. This is, in my opinion, one of the most, in the German tree plan, unhistorical thing they've done here. And not just an alt history like befriend Japan or China or befriend Czechoslovakia or Poland or something. Decided to go off alt history. This should be after the 4-year plans and whatever. But so we will of course see more of that later. We will start to notice I've changed the titles from industrial effort to 4-year plan. So we are using the national focus tree, but you no longer get, okay, and this is just telling you that the idea has expired because I learned how to do these as a timed event, so one of them has gone away, the bow. Yes, I'm probably butchering these titles, but now we have more political power that we can decide to do something with. Stop that. We're going to continue with some artillery research, so I'm going to leave Rheinmetall there, but we're going to go over to Messerschmitt for aircraft. And as go away. I want you there. Okay, Sudeten Deutsch Party, the SDP. They go way back in one form or another. There's a few name changes early on, but by this time it is clearly called the SDP. It very much was supported in many ways, including financially, by the Nazis in Germany. I don't know whether it was supported by the German government or simply by the NSDAP party, but it was very much supported, so we're going to lose 10 political power. Here, this is just sort of informing you what the event is. Okay, and there will be more on that coming up. Deutscher Freshner Radfunk, the Fresh Sender, Paul Nickpau, Berlin. Paul Nickpau is the guy who created. This is TV, TV station. Paul Nickpau. Sorry, I'm messing this up. This is actually a photograph of it. You see the rather, what is that, a 4-story building there or something? Huge broadcasting tower on the south side of Berlin. This is basically just a Berlin area. I don't quite know how far outside of Berlin, but it was definitely greater Berlin. Coverage on it. So we can decide to support it here with a little bit of political power. And get a little more national unity if we want. And, oh, what's her name here? Ursula Pashnik? I'm sorry, I pushed in that. She would start sort of every broadcasting day of Achtung, Achtung, Fresh Sender Paul Nip Cow. I'm not going to go into the rest of the stuff, but this is her greetings. You can see this, and I think there's still a link on my channel there to some clips of it. You can hear, because she come on live every day and start it. You can see some of they did preserve a few of the broadcasts, and they're on YouTube here if you want to watch them. And this is sort of the screen saver, if you will, on when there's no nothing to particularly show. Just to give you an idea of what German TV was like. So she was the sort of announcer face for German TV at this time. Okay, we love Zeppelins. I think Zeppelins are cool. I would, on a nice weather day, a helium-filled Zeppelin, I would take a ride on. That would be really cool. I would take a ride on a helium-filled Zeppelin on a good weather day. But since our Hindenburg is doing so great, the LZ 129, this is the LZ 30 Graf Zeppelin 2 to replace the Graf Zeppelin 1, which is getting small, getting out of date, which had been doing a lot of mail and passenger service to mostly Latin America, but other places as well. So we're going to start production on another one. Now, since we are clicking here, notice the number of armaments factories here for Brandenburg area of Berlin. And this is a bit of a secret, and I've learned how to do this. You want to start production on it? Well, you only have the choice of yes, because you may go, we know the history of hydrogen-filled Zeppelins do not end good. So, but they obviously thought otherwise at this time, so we're going with the historical and forcing you to do that. You just lost one. Now, I have it set up for approximately 30 days. You lose, I remove a armaments factory from the Berlin area. Okay. In approximately 30 days, there is a hidden event you won't see, but a new factory, your new armaments factory, will be replaced back there. So I'm doing this in other events, but I'm explaining it here. Instead of, sometimes I'm going to do this type of thing of reduce, because this is a construction project here. This is constructing other buildings, and so obviously right now as I play, currently all we're doing is constructing civil factories. This limits construction of any factories, where building a Zeppelin is using duralumin, which is a aluminum alloy type element, and other things like aircraft engines and similar things. So I look at that as, instead of reducing, and I could, aircraft production speed, which I thought about doing for some of these things. Excuse me. I decided, and in consultation of a few people who have posted on some of these subjects, decided sometimes I'm just going to remove one or more factories for a while from your ability to use them. So that goes away. This is a period, and I've known about this for quite some time, long before I ever started playing Hearts of Iron. This was an image, obviously a two-page image, and you published, I think, in more than one magazine. But this is how Germany saw itself. Okay, now this isn't unique to the Nazis. I think this is actually maybe originally done prior to the Nazis coming into power. The traditionalist, you're sort of middle-of-the-road communist, or democratic socialists might not view the world this way, but this is how the center and through the center right and through the far right, both the far right of the conservative far right, the sort of nationalists, and then the sort of radical far right of the national socialists, viewed the world and Germany's place in it here with a 100,000 man army, basically a few out-of-date ships like the Schleswig-Holstein, and a few light things, and no legal air force. So that you can look at some of the numbers of how the Czechoslovakia at this time with 100,000 men. If you don't count the SA, if you've played my Third Reich events for Black Ice, you know how I've added the SA in. If you don't count the SA, basically Czechoslovakia can take on Germany and conquer Germany at this time. I mean, not that it wouldn't be a hard fight for Czechoslovakia, but they can do it. If it's just this 100,000 man army, Czechoslovakia alone could do it, and probably Poland could do it. Poland is not as well industrialized and doesn't have as a heavily machine gunned and artilleried up army as they were working on it. They were dealing with some Browning machine gun designs and other stuff at this time, but it wasn't nearly to where Czechoslovakia was. And France could just easily have walked across Germany at this time with its army. It would have been a super easy thing, let alone nations that we know that Stalin was an aggressive communist nation who would love to have taken over all of Europe. Could have just easily rolled across there. So they saw all these threats. They saw small nations like Austria or Lithuania as being able to take East Prussia. So this was the German mindset. Now this picture really illustrates it. Not that it's all these numbers and whatever are fact and that they're accurate, but they're definitely the impression that Germany got. And this is why Hitler was able to do what he did. Like a current politician, Hitler in some ways accurately described the problems Germany was facing. Now Hitler's remedies for these problems are insane. You know, world conquest and killing millions of people. That is in no way am I defending any of that. But this is how a lot of Germans saw it, and Hitler was the guy who was loudest on we will redress this balance of power. And most of the, particularly the army, but a lot of the elites in Germany, as well as a lot of the working class, would go along with the idea of rearmament. They were not, especially in 1936 and before, they were nowhere near wanting to go to war with a country like France. That would have scared the hell out of them. So they did not want to go to World War I again. So this is, I think, a very powerful image and understanding Hitler's ability to come to power, and not just in the voting booth, but the ability to see. There's a difference between being voted chancellor. Well, he wasn't voted chancellor. His party got a lot of seats in the Reich chancellery, or Reichstag. The Reichstag got a lot of seats, and then set up as a coalition member with the nationalists as chancellor, with Hindenburg as president. But to move from holding an office in a government to being able to seize basically every lever of power in Germany, and that is a big thing, to where not just like the police or not just the army, but the equivalent of the automobile club and the traffic police with the NSKK and the farming associations, and every single element. All the labor unions eventually were Nazified. Every aspect of German life was seized control eventually by Hitler and the Nazis. He was able to do it, in my opinion, only because sort of that image that everybody thought yeah, we're in such a terrible position. We're filled with enemies, people who, there were a lot of people, trust me, in Belgium and France that hated the Germans just because, hey, the Germans killed their brother, father, whoever in World War I. There were lots of people in Poland and Czechoslovakia that didn't want to either come back under German, of Austrian type or of German type Germans or Austrian type German control. And Poland, obviously, before World War I, didn't exist as an independent country. It was either part of Russia or part of Germany. They did not want to return to those states, and a lot of them, a lot of Czechs died serving for Austria-Hungary. They didn't like the Germans because, again, their father, brother, whoever, died in the war that wasn't their war. A lot of Poles, similarly. There was a lot of people out there that didn't like Germans just for being German and German previous behavior. And so that they were in that situation, and there was, with the, obviously, till just before this situation, the demilitarized Rhineland. There was a lot of other restrictions that Germany, in my opinion, Germans rightfully thought that the map can change. Germany might not be this shape next month, next year, and it might be somebody else taking a bite out of it. Obviously, we know the path that history took. They did not know that. That's why Hitler was able to seize various levers of power and gain control of that. And so that picture, in my opinion, is a very powerful image of how he was able to do that, is because of very real fears. Okay, well, we're going to continue this next episode here and cover the West Wall Pioneer program. Then, again, thanks so much for liking the videos. Thanks for watching. Thanks for posting questions, comments here on the channel or anywhere else on the web. Love your support. Thanks so much.